Good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock and we've got some short schedules. So I want to thank you all for attending our October meeting, and I want to thank the Arkansas State Fair for allowing us to start meeting here today. And we'll begin with introductions and certifying a quorum. So I'll start with Tyler Davis, Commission.
Sarah Throne, the Commission.
Bill Hewitt, Commissioner of Washington County.
Mike Malone, Commission.
Bruce Mallett, Commissioner. Patrick Pierce, Livestock and Poultry.
Got Tommy Wren,
Tommy Wren, Commissioner.
Chad Chester.
Chad Chester, Commissioner.
We should have a quorum.
Marcus Creasy, Commissioner.
Oh, glad to have you, Marcus. I didn't know you were on there.
Perfect.
Is that perfect attendance? Oh, we got Dan Wright, who's absent, so, all right. Okay, you have any other,
Consider it no plasma here. Want to take it? Maybe group here. Start with.
Tanner Thomas, Arkansas Department of Agriculture. Russell Moffett, Arkansas Department of Agriculture. Kevin Simmons, Department of Agriculture. John Dowell, Department of Agriculture. Carolyn Bullock, Department of Agriculture. Tim Tree, Department of Agriculture.
Wendy Sloan, Department of Agriculture. Sherry Gillis, Department of Agriculture.
Jeffrey Powell, Department of Agriculture. Blake Finger, Department of Ag.
Warren Teague, Department of Ag.
all right. Thank you, everyone. You guys have in your packet, the first tab, minutes from the July 26th, Livestock and Poultry Commission. If you would review those and, if it's suitable, entertain a motion to approve.
Move to be approved.
Motion been made by Bruce Mallett,
Second.
second by Bill Hewitt. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. All right, we're gonna skip, guys, now down to, the election of officers. It's actually number 5 in our agenda. And, we need to elect a new chair. And so here nominations for that.
If I may interject, Commissioner Wright, has a previous obligation with Farm Bureau as president. He feels like his time will be, is going to be used up quite a bit with the Federation. So he has asked us to step down this time. Typically, we do a rotation, depending on the time here. We can continue to do that, which would potentially move up Commissioner Wren as president and Commissioner Malone as vice. We can continue to do that as if you will, or if y'all want to just make a nomination. That's up to you on how y'all want to proceed.
I move that we just stay with the rotation.
A motion been made by, Dr. Malone to, be Tommy Wren for chair, Mike Malone for vice chair.
I'll second.
Second by Bruce Mallett on that. Any further discussion? Being none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? None opposed. All right, now we'll move into agency activities and we'll turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologize for the skip around on the agenda, but we do need, Senator Malik or Mr. Malik needs to step down for another meeting. And we do need the votes, in consideration for the veterinarian, complaints on the file cases that I've handed out to you. We'll go ahead and get that started, and that, as committee chair, I'll turn that over to Commissioner, Seth Brown. You can go ahead and give us a summary and discuss the cases
Okay.
as they are.
Do we need to go through the administrative items or applications? Just go
That
through
would
the
be
minutes?
fine, yes.
Okay, we'll just go straight through our minutes from our last meeting. So our last meeting was held on September 18th. All members were present with the exception of Dr. Palome and Dr. Hewitt. Administrative items, we had 3 veterinary technicians that had put in applications for review, and all of those were found suitable to meet the requirements in the state of Arkansas. So we would recommend that the 3 certified veterinary technicians be approved and granted license.
The recommendation to approve 3, veterinary technician, applications. Here,
I move we accept the recommendation to approve those 3.
motion by Commissioner Mallett, second by Dr. Hewitt. Right, Bill Hewitt. And if no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None noted. Dr. Plum, Dr. Thurman.
Okay. In addition to those, we had 12 applications for reciprocal license for veterinarians to practice. And it was made that we recommend, or if the recommendation was made to accept all 12 applications for reciprocal license.
Okay, we've got a recommendation to approve 12 licensures.
I'm ready to approve those 12, applicants.
Motion made by Bill Hewitt. Approved.
Second.
Second by Tommy Wren. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One noted. Dr. Thurman.
Okay. And then we did have several complaints that we were able to review. The first was docket number 2022-16. The summary of that. We made a motion and seconded and passed that, sorry. I reviewed these the other day, but we need to just summarize myself. So summary of this was the complaint was filed, after the surrender of a 7-year-old male cat to the respondent and after surgery of a urethral obstruction. And then, there was an issue with the owner of the cat trying to, regain control of that animal after they had surrendered the animal. And they lodged a complaint, citing several different code violations and rule violations. And these violations were based on charges for cremation when the animal was not euthanized. When we looked at the bill, the respondent's course of treatment for the animal was determined. We felt like it changed after there was a call from a friend, who stated he was an attorney but not offering legal advice and felt like there was maybe some threatening behavior that resulted in a change. We recommended to offer a consent agreement to the respondent with 6 hours of continuing education for record keeping and 1 hour of continuing education for client communication. These 7 additional continuing education requirements are in addition to the 20 hours that would require for typical normal license renewal. We did re-review this case in September and we made a motion, seconded and passed to present this to the commission for the following rule violations. Arkansas Code 17101-305 A11, which was unprofessional conduct by violation of a rule promulgated by the commission. And the rule that we felt was violated was Rule 19, obtaining or attempting to attain any fee, charge, or compensation by fraud, deception, and misrepresentation. And so it's our recommendation that we maintain the current consent agreement and move forward with a hearing recommendation to the commission. That was a lot, I know. And we did review this. I don't know if it was lost in there, but we reviewed this case twice. We made the initial review. And then as a committee, we came back and re-reviewed it after consultation with our attorney and made some slight adjustments, but still felt like it needed to move forward for a consent decree.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
I guess let me get some clarification. I was not present at this meeting, so we're going to a hearing because the veterinarian has refused the continuing education that we first recommended, or did that ever go to the veterinarian?
Tanner, I don't know if the first recommendation ever went out. Can you clarify?
This came back. We had voted to send this back to the committee after the July Livestock and Poultry Commission meeting. The reason being was we had sent out that consent agreement, and when you send something like that out, don't necessarily make somebody sign on to the admission of every single factual thing there. So we had a brief summary there, but when it came time to form a notice of hearing, which will be sent to y'all when it's time for that, it was unclear from the minutes of that particular December committee meeting what the factual findings of the committee were and what the hearing would be about. And that's not the committee's fault, it's not the commission's fault, that was there, it wasn't necessarily clear, and we couldn't find a recording of that particular meeting to figure that out. And so that's why I went back to the committee, they hammered out the distinct facts that caught their eye the first time, and then detailed some other things that would have been missed in just a minute's summary of their committee meeting. There was a consent agreement that was initially sent back in, I believe it was either March or April. It had a 30-day window to sign that, and that 30-day window had passed. The veterinarian had kindly refused to sign this consent agreement and had hired counsel to dispute this. And it wasn't just straight up refusal. They actually communicated with that to state the reason why that this was the case. And we had included the letter from the attorney to the committee that they reviewed. In fact, they had, as part of their response, make sure that we got everything fleshed out on the table in that meeting. And the recommendation from the committee now is, since that consent agreement was initially refused and that 30 days has passed to trigger a hearing, the motion now on the table is to go through with the hearing, let this veterinarian state her case with her attorney, and let the commission do its fact-finding process. Yes, there are a few things that need to be teased out on this as well.
Thank you, Tim.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just for a point of clarification for me and others. We're basically in negotiations with this veterinarian and their lawyers, so a hearing is not an absolute definite. It's just that there may be a hearing on this because they could get our response back and say, okay, well, we agree to the consent agreement and we don't want it. Or are you saying there will be a hearing because they didn't respond to that previous consent?
Well, the recommendation was from the committee, was to stay the course with that particular consent agreement. And that's just a recommendation from the committee. And that would mean, since that 30 days is up and the veterinarian didn't want to sign this, and the council, they pushed back on it. And they're willing to go to a hearing on that. That's a recommendation from the committee to go through that process since the initial consent agreement was refused. The violations found from the committee at the last meeting were lessened from the amount, but the same penalty applies. They didn't change the penalty, but they lessened one of the findings of a violation of the rule. So now it's just unprofessional conduct by violation of the rule promulgated, and that rule would be fee, charge, or other compensation by fraud, deceptive representation. That's the allegation there, and that's just one factual thing that the commission can make through. Now, the commission does have a right to offer a new consent agreement to give this veterinarian another chance and to consult with her attorney, see if that's something she'd rather do rather than go to a hearing. We open this up for another 30 days, and once that 30 days goes, then we set this thing for a hearing in the near future. So it's either set a hearing now or offer another consent agreement for settlement. There.
Would we do another consent agreement, or would we reset the clock on this, the one that's currently in place?
Well, I would redraft the consent agreement since it has one less violation on it to make sure that that's clear to the veterinarian what they're signing on to.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask just for a clarification, and this following up on Dr. Niles and to Dr. Crone. I mean, if we redraft the consent agreement, now he hasn't signed it, and so, yes, I agree with going forward with the hearing. But I got some lawyer in me, and I know a lot of times they settle the night before. So, I mean, if he signs a consent agreement, is the committee good
I think the committee would
With
be
that.
good if they sign the consent agreement acknowledging this issue, take the action that would be required around continuing education. I don't see that the committee would have any issues with that. I mean, that was our initial hope
Yeah.
in the
Anyway,
first place.
right.
I move that we schedule it for a hearing, unless the proposed consent agreement is signed. That,
That's acceptable.
Everybody understand the motion? That's it. All right, we got a second. Dr. Hewitt,
So is there a time frame for the signing of the consent agreement or?
Say, Commissioner, if I understand, Commissioner Malik, that would be, you can still sign this consent agreement, these penalties up until even minutes.
Before the hearing, okay.
commences, or before a decision is made, you can still consent to it before a decision. is made.
all right. We all clear?
Point of clarification, I don't believe, Patrick, I cannot vote on this since I was in the mission, is that correct? Okay.
All right, so we got a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? No opposition, no, motion passed. Guess we'll move into the next docket.
Yes.
From-
So the next docket was docket 2024-06. There was, two allegations of, issues related to gross incompetence and negligence, malpractice, and then unprofessional conduct, citing, the veterinarian had undertaken care of an animal, and rendered care generally unacceptable to the veterinary profession, making false or deceptive statements, dishonorable conduct, and conduct, reflecting unfavorably. So the summary of the complaint, is that the complainant took her dog Ellie in, to respond to her weekly checks on insulin. As we reviewed this case, we did not feel like it rose to the level of any of the allegations made by the complainant, and our recommendation is to dismiss this case.
All right, so we've got a recommendation to dismiss.
Follow the recommendations of the board and dismiss.
A motion by Dr. Malone to dismiss.
Can I do that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you were not present.
I'll second.
Second by Bruce Mallett. No further discussion. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Next docket.
Next docket was 2024-08. There were several allegations made by the complainant in this. Incompetence, gross negligence, malpractice, cruelty to animals, unprofessional conduct, tendering a fee without doing those services, overtreating a patient or charging for services not rendered. This was a complaint about a dog that had an injury after boarding. We had quite an extensive discussion on this one as well, but really felt that after we reviewed the issues related to it, there were a lot of inconsistencies in the story. And our recommendation is that we move to dismiss this complaint.
Dismissed. Motion made by Dr. Hewitt to dismiss.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Malone. No further discussion. Speak about saying aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passed. Next docket.
Next docket was docket 2023-06, and this was actually initially taken up in the previous meeting. We had tabled it at that time to try to gather additional information. The complainant was alleging incompetence, gross negligence, or malpractice. It all centered around a parrot and trying to get international health certificates for that. And it was seen at multiple clinics, but we only had records from one clinic. So we did recommend that we table this case again And that we request, additional medical records from, an additional clinic to be able to have a complete picture of what happened here.
Motion table,
Correct.
the recommendation table, sorry.
I don't know if there's any action that needs to be taken on part of the commission on that one.
What about,
We, the 24.
2024-04.
Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go back.
Ah, sorry about that. I knew I had another case sitting here. How could I have missed that one? Okay. So this 2024-04 has multiple allegations against this veterinarian: gross incompetence, negligence, malpractice, fraud and dishonesty in reporting test or disease, failure to maintain professional premises and equipment, cruelty to animals, unprofessional conduct promulgated by a rule, including the veterinarian undertook the care of an animal and did not render that care as accepted by the veterinary profession, guaranteed a cure, made false or deceptive statements, being guilty of dishonorable and unethical conduct, conduct unbecoming of the veterinary profession. In addition, being able to practice as a veterinarian without reasonable skill and overtreating patients. This was a case of a dog that presented for diarrhea, later had a bulging eye that had to be removed. There was a lot of kind of back and forth in the description between the veterinarian and the client. And our recommendation at the time was to table this and get additional witness statements. There were additional witnesses listed in the complaint. However, none of them provided any additional information. And so in order to have a complete picture, so it's a bit less of he said, she said, we wanted additional information on this case.
Another recommendation to table.
Okay, this was also a case, and I was trying to remember looking at Dr. Niles to make sure, because this one had some pretty extensive allegations related to cleanliness of the clinic and conduct and structure of the building. In addition, that this is somebody that we have had multiple complaints against. We felt it was also prudent to be able to put eyes on the clinic, to be able to substantiate some of those allegations. And so we asked Dr. Niles and Dr. Moffett to make a site visit at the premises as well. Do you want to, I don't know if you want to provide any details of that?
Just briefly, and Dr. Moffett had built an inspection form for us off of the rules. So the inspection went according to the items only listed in our practice rule. So we went there, examined it. Overall, it was okay. We identified 3 things and we gave him a time frame to fix those. And so we'll look back and make sure he brought that back along. So the inspection went well.
Thank you, Dr. Niles.
Okay, there's no action on that item. I guess we can. There's one more. We got one more item in discussion on veterinary practice compliance.
one more beside that, administrative consent.
Pardon?
No, I've got one.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Okay, we have an administrative consent agreement, in play right now. We've got the case, cattle producer in Israel County. Typically our matrix for non-compliance is a warning letter, issuing them, showing what their violation is. If they don't act on that warning letter, then we move to a consent order or typically a fine. And that doesn't even go with the hearing like we do here. However, this particular producer in the last 2 years has been fined over 70 times with the county for cattle at large.
This is a producer or veterinarian?
This is a producer.
Okay,
He owns, just a little over 100 head. And we felt like, or at least I felt like, with 70 open cases of violations, he's already paid $10,000 in fines. That was warning enough that he is in violation. So the county's been typically handling that case. The landowner that he's encroaching owner has been contacting me, and he's losing a lot of damage. He puts out corn for his own cattle, they're eating his corn. So we went ahead and issued an administrative order. That order was for a $5,000 fine to be in compliance. Since that order was placed, a judge has put him under a $15,000 fine order that he sell his cattle. So I've spoke with the gentleman. He's agreed to sell his cows. He's already sold 90 so far. He's got 40 left. Some of them are wild. He's trying to catch them. So I put the order on hold if he can sell his cattle, because I feel like that'll resolve the issue and we won't have to issue a fine. However, that order is still in play if he doesn't follow through with the agreement to sell his cattle. So just want to make sure you guys are fine with that. We can go ahead and pursue with the fine if you feel like it's needed. But he still will be ordered to pay damages to the landowner that he's violated. So there's going to be quite a bit of damage there. So if it's all right with you, I'll move forward with that and keep you guys up to date. Okay. There has been a couple of questions. We've had some folks concerned about future cases, how we're going to handle not only these malpractice cases, but potential cases where we have individuals practicing license or practicing medicine by license. There was a meeting that Commissioner Colon attended, so I want to turn it over to him and let him kind of tell everybody what that meeting was about and what some of the open discussions that we did.
Yeah, so in the meeting was an informal dinner meeting that with myself and Senator Hill and some other people. But one thing that I think some of us have, especially on the veterinary board, that we've talked about is a lack of ability to police some non-veterinarians doing veterinary medicine in Arkansas. I think the veterinary examining board is in place, and I think I hate to say we're doing a good job because I'm on the board, but I think we're doing a good job policing the veterinarians. I think we're really lacking right now, and I think it's just because of lack of manpower, is policing people that are not veterinarians that are practicing veterinary medicine. And I know that's touchy with some people. I know that's kind of hard to do, but it's very disheartening when we spend our time trying to follow the rules and we went to school and we've paid the debt and we've hired the people. And then you get online and there's somebody doing veterinary medicine that has a high school degree or has not gone through any formal training whatsoever. So dental extractions is one. I know several years ago, the state passed a bill where it's legal for non-veterinarians to float teeth. Floating teeth does not include dental extractions. And it's, I think it's pretty clear in that bill when that was made that is not to be included. And so you can get on Facebook right now and see multiple people that are showing pictures of equine teeth that they're extracting surgically. Other thing is small animal and equine and small ruminant ultrasound. And I'm still kind of in the gray on where the pregnancy diagnosis, when the embryo transfer bill got passed, the pregnancy diagnosis that was put in there is my understanding that was for non-veterinarians, as long as they were certified in Arkansas, which I don't think, to my knowledge, anybody has gone even through the certification process or taken the time to get approved in Arkansas. They're just doing it. But there's a lot of people going around advertising ultrasound on dogs. I sent you a text the other day. There was a girl online on Facebook, ultrasound for pregnancy diagnosis in small animal, small ruminants, equine, and cattle. Nothing to do with the embryo transfer at all. And I know this girl, she's a client of mine because she's not even out of college yet. So it's becoming more and more accepted, I guess, by the public maybe, that these people have maybe been trained when in fact there is really no scrutiny over what their qualifications are. You can get on Craigslist or eBay and buy an ultrasound for $500 these days. And so you buy an ultrasound and you get some alcohol and some lube and you go around and say you're an ultrasound technician. And so what we had discussed was maybe trying to figure out how to fund a enforcement officer for livestock and poultry. And this would be to follow up on cases, not only what Dr. Niles and them had to do with the veterinarian on the clinic and stuff, but mainly on these people that are practicing veterinary medicine without a license. And there are a lot of them. And so I guess we need to talk as a commission on how important this is to the commission. You know, again, I've got a different dog in the hunt. I mean, that's how I make my living. And so I will yield to the commission's viewpoint on this. But there are a lot of things going on that if we really looked at the letter of the law, is practicing veterinary medicine without license. The Pulse PMF technicians that are at every barrel race in Arkansas, that is a therapy modality. And so they're treating these horses with no known history of issues. If a horse has a partial suspensory tear and some 17-year-old boy or girl goes and does pulse pro on this horse right before a run, and that horse breaks down during the run because you've numbed it with that therapy modality 20 minutes before the run, you know, who's liable for that child falling with that on that barrel horse or that horse? So I think there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that maybe we're not going to follow it. I don't know, but it is a sensitive spot for me and several other veterinarians. And so we had talked about trying to figure out a way to fund an enforcement. I think one person in Arkansas would be enough. You know, if we're in Texas, no way. But I think one person in Arkansas could follow up. All you would have to do is check the social media postings. I mean, again, these people are very blatant about their advertising. And I would think one person would be plenty to police this and follow up on some of this stuff.
Well, we've had cases, or we've had letters written to to our committee, even around massage therapy
Yes,
and some
right.
of those kind of things.
Yeah, I think we need to, again, draw a pretty clear line on what we're accepting as practice in veterinary medicine and what we're not. And there are different states that, allow different things. And I don't know if we have a real clear viewpoint on that with the commission. I know all this is new in the last couple of years, how it all rolls. But I think I would love to get an opinion from the commission on, again, how strict we're going to be and if we are going to follow up on this. And there are some liability and some hazard issues out there with some of these treatment modalities that untrained people are doing. It's not just that they're getting in our back pocket. It's that there are a lot of these treatment modalities that can put the animal and the rider at risk. And then there's no oversight. There's no repercussions on a non-veterinarian. If I did that, then I have the veterinary examining board to analyze and fine and affect me. And also I have liability insurance to where if I was negligent in a treatment and something happened to the human or the animal, then I have insurance to cover that. These non-veterinarians have no oversight. They have no insurance, and they have no oversight at all about anything they're doing. So we've got 2 veterinary schools coming, so we're gonna have a flood of veterinarians here before long. I don't personally believe there is a void in veterinary medicine in Arkansas, but maybe there's a void in veterinarians that want to work in Arkansas. But I think there's room here to establish a clear line between what is against the Practice Act and against the law and what's not.
Well, Dr. Pallone, I think we absolutely have to hold people accountable. We absolutely have to protect the practice of veterinary medicine in the state of Arkansas. I do want to make 2 comments. I live in North Arkansas, Izard, Sharp, Fulton counties, And we do have a void up here for
Yeah.
veterinary medicine. I mean, a huge void. And so, you know, we welcome the veterinarian schools, and we're excited about it. My question is, with that being said, how do we fund this position? Going to the legislature and asking for additional funds to hire somebody is going to be extremely tough. I mean, the governor's got a hold on positions that are, you know, open. And I guess my second question, and this would be for Patrick, could our livestock inspectors, could they do this around the state? I know we have them in different parts of the state, so I'll yield, but I let me say this. I definitely think that we need some accountability, because we do have folks advertising and not knowing what they're doing.
For sure. And I don't guess if there are personnel that are in place that could do this, obviously that'd be a lot easier and quicker than hiring a new position. But I guess you tell me if there's enough people in place.
Well, I've already been looking in this. We've got one of two positions already, that we've held back that we can look at without having to go before the legislators. My thoughts would be, we would use the inspector position, but potentially hire a veterinary technician that would have some knowledge in the field already. I would be nervous for our technicians or our inspectors to be investigating these cases. That's just not their field of expertise. So a vet tech would be nice, for someone that has some experience in that field.
Sure.
We could go that route. It would be, you know, inspector one position. I think it's right at 30,000 would be the opening position for that. That I feel like one could cover it.
Agreed, yeah.
Now we know that once we start investigating these, that a lot of these will go on the ground, so we'll miss the opportunity to look on Facebook or social media. So we'll have to do some legwork and base off complaints.
But if they're unable to advertise on social media,
That helps.
yeah,
That
right,
helps with the
right. I
problem,
mean, that's
for sure.
right. They won't be doing much work. Yeah.
The other question I would be is how would you handle this? Typically, like I say, we have that warning, that matrix that we use. Would we, and I've got actually a letter drafted for one of those cases that we've been looking at is malpractice or practicing without a license, equine dentistry. And ready to send this, we could go with the route, and Tanner, correct me if I'm wrong, each case could go to the committee and eventually come to the commission, or we could handle it from an administrative point and issuing a cease and desist order to that individual. And then if they don't, then we go to the committee and commission and review the case and then go into a penalty phase with that.
That would make sense. Sure.
So that way that would cut off a lot of that, you know, in between work, so.
So, forgive my ignorance on the dentistry law where, you know, a layman can float teeth. Is the code written in a way that it specifically says floating teeth only, or does it use the term dentistry? And then similarly on the PIMF, you know, where do you draw the line? And I guess my point is with the technology that we have today and the ability of people to buy things that have traditionally been used only by practitioners, this is not going to stop people from practicing veterinary medicine without a license. But if we could have less gray in what's described in our code, I think that would be a little bit better too.
You know, and obviously if an owner wanted to buy a pimp, you know, get online and buy one today, if they want to use it on their own horse, that's their business. If they're going to set up shop and have to be paid for services on someone else's horses, I think that's the line, you know.
But what about a cow? When you use pimp on a cow?
I think same thing, dog, cow, anything. If you're getting paid to do a therapy modality on someone else's animal, that's practicing veterinary medicine, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, again, if you want to do it on your own.
the depth is not as clear cut as the equine dentistry. It's very clear.
I get that part, but you can see that someone would maybe assume that there was a whole lot more gray as opposed to the just floating teeth. And I don't think we should do it, don't get me wrong. I'm
Well, and
just
it says in there, they cannot sedate. All right, and so again, I don't know if anybody ever tried to float a horse's teeth without sedation, it cannot be done. So they cannot sedate, and it says floating, and then floating, the definition of floating is to reduce the enamel points with mechanisms and all, but then it says no extraction, so it is listed in there,
Yes.
about no extractions. And so again, what, most of these people are doing, and again, I don't know how we get around the float thing, we probably can't unless we go after who's selling them the xylazine and the demostan. They've got to be getting their drugs somewhere. Every picture that's online, the horse is heavily sedated in a McPherson speculum hanging there. This horse is heavily sedated with drugs that they got somewhere. So a veterinarian or a veterinary supply company has to be given these drugs. They're not controlled, but they have to be selling them. So that'd be one way to go after that. But again, the extractions that they show a picture of 15 teeth that they extracted that day on their social media page.
Yeah, there's clear enough evidence to act on several right now. Once they go underground, it'll be a little bit more difficult to catch them because you have to witness that, or have somebody verify it. But no, we'll do whatever the commission wants to do on that. And I feel strongly that we do need to act on some of these for sure.
Yes, to provide a little bit of context and kind of a backstory of what we've done on other commissions. The practice of veterinary medicine without a license, if you don't fall into one of the exemptions that we have in code as well, is any person who shall practice or attempt to practice veterinary medicine in the state without having been licensed by the commission shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor. Upon conviction, you got a fine of no less than 50 and no more than $250 per violation. Each state is its own violation if you practice medicine without a license. And let's see, in addition to these penalties provided in the section, the commission may institute legal proceedings to enjoin the violation of the provisions of this chapter to a court in the jurisdiction that this happened in, that the unlawful practice happened in. The way that we have advised, and this was recent, the Forestry Commission, any violation of the registered forester section is considered a Class A misdemeanor. We had a violation or alleged violation come up several months ago, and our advice was to, upon hearing this, the commission hearing, bring forth the evidence, let this person go through the administrative process. If the commission deemed that this was a violation of that provision, then our law enforcement would be able to write a Rule 5 citation, just like if they pulled you over on the side of the road. Now, if Billy Black, our chief of law enforcement at agriculture, saw that 12-year-old doing open heart surgery on a dog on the side of the road, he is under no obligation to stop and call one of y'all and say, hey, let's have a special meeting right now and do that. He can issue a citation because if he knows what a violation of the provision is, he can issue that citation, bring it to the court, up to the prosecutor. The way that we did that with the commission, and this is as it stands now, not a comment on any potential legislation. If something came to y'all, my advice would be to go through the fact finding process. You can go through the committee if you wanted to, or just the commission. And have somebody issue a citation, maybe our law enforcement, whatever, who's in the process, and then give that to the prosecuting attorney in the relevant county that this happened there. The reason being is that a misdemeanor is a criminal offense, even though it's in our provisions. We don't want to run into any sort of constitutional issues, not just with our state constitution. This is the United States, and we want to make sure that they get the trial by jury in front of their peers and go through the process for misdemeanors on that. But secondly, the commission has the right to impose civil penalties up to a certain amount, just as part of the administrative procedure in the professional statute. And some general provisions, and that goes for all professions. To a certain extent, you have up until typically around 2,500, I believe, I'm going off memory, to establish that. So on any of these provisions that anybody's violating, you have a cap of civil penalties, but it'd be my opinion. And if we actually came down to it and we need to get in the weeds, I would do that, just to make sure we're doing it right. But I do believe we have power here to issue our own fines rather than go convoluted criminal route, or both at the same time.
If I may, I think it's prudent to inject some of the conversation that happened in the committee about equine dentistry, and I don't know who all was there at that meeting. But what has happened is there are equine dentistry schools outside of Arkansas that are taking students and training them, giving them a certificate, and they're calling, wanting to know, these students are now calling, wanting to know how to get their equine dentistry license. And we have to inform them there's no such thing. But they have come in and they've started their practices, and they have a lucrative practice, and they are providing care to these animals. So the committee talked about this, and we recognize that it is practicing veterinary medicine without a proper license. And we also know that they're out there, they're working. There's about 7 entities that we have identified. I spoke directly with one of them. They have a good viable practice. They're getting their drugs somehow, some way. May or may not be legitimate according to the acquisition, according to the Practice Act or the rule. So this is a viable thing, and one of the committee members offered up that if we go to hardball with this and give a cease and desist order and start issuing fine, there's going to be a lot of pushback. And so one of the things that was offered in the committee, and this is your committee, and I thought maybe you needed to hear this, Commissioner, because that person is not here and I'll represent that person, but let's talk to all of these equine dentists with quotes, these people that are out there, they have good clientele, and tell them you have 60, 90, 120 days to become allied with a practitioner, with a veterinarian. And in our environment these days, if push comes to shove, pieces of practice have been doled out to others that are not veterinarians. And so I just wanted the commission to hear that offer from practitioners on the committee. Maybe if we went and got together with these, get them all together. We know you're here, we know you're established, but you must become affiliated with a licensed practitioner in the state, who then could help you get your medications in a legal fashion and above board. Thank you.
I'm gonna interject. So dentist A comes to me and wants to form an alliance with me. They go and sedate a horse that I do not have a VCPR with, a current VCPR with. So only the way the Practice Act is right now, only the veterinarian can establish a VCPR. So the prescription drug of xylazine and dermosine for sedation that's administered to that horse that I've never seen, even if I have an alliance with a veterinarian, still does not give a current valid VCPR with that horse.
Yes, sir. And in that alliance, that means that his clients have to be your clients.
They have to have a current VCPR.
And that would mean, must have that in person.
Right.
With a physical exam.
Right.
Not by phone.
So.
If I can interject for a minute, you know, Senator Malik, who stepped out of the room, I think, and I were in the legislature in 2013 when this whole teeth floating deal came up. And I'm telling you, it got crazy. We had people coming in and just fighting mad over this. And I can assure you that the first time we give a cease and desist to somebody doing that, there's going to be a legislator running a bill to open this thing up. So, you know, I think we do have to kind of control the narrative, but I think we've got to be careful, or we'll have legislation in this session trying to open this thing up with this, because I'm telling you, I've seen very few things in my time in the legislature that were I don't know, hate to use the word silly, but that teeth floating deal got silly. So, you know, I think we just keep that in mind. And I hate that one of my vivid memories of the serving in the legislature had to do with teeth floating, but it is.
Somebody's got their hand up.
I can't see David.
Okay, I just want to make sure we didn't have somebody else online that,
Well, is there any? Chad, did you have something?
No,
No, and I guess while we're, bringing this up again, I said it, I'll yield to the commission's point of view on this. Again, I think we as veterinarians just need to know, whether this is a fight, that we're gonna take on or not, and as a commission. And so, I mean, this has been going on for years in Arkansas and probably other states. I know there are certain states that are much stricter, but not all of them. And so it's just whether it's worth, taking a bite of the bear and pursuing this or not. And again, I'm biased, obviously, but because it's my vocation, my occupation. But if we're going to, pursue it, then I'm all about helping and doing whatever we need to do to actually pursue it and, try to curb it. If everybody's point of view is to leave it alone like it is, then I will yield to that.
I think we need to pursue it because we also need to pursue the ultrasound in the cattle.
Yeah.
That advertised a lot also.
A lot, yeah, and again, the small ruminant and cattle and, again, I guess Tanner, we can look back at the embryo transfer rule, and I don't know if you were working here, I know you were. I mean, again, the pregnancy diagnosis that was passed at that point was, to my understanding, was pregnancy diagnosis of the animals that were embryo transferred. And so what is the standing or what is the law on pregnancy diagnosis in food animal on just anybody's animal, meaning that nothing to do with embryo transfer? Is it legal for a layman to charge for pregnancy diagnosis in cattle in Arkansas that's not related to embryo transfer?
I mean, we had a pretty extensive discussion. We've had an extensive discussion several different times. My thing is, I do think it is something we need to pursue. I think we need to go in with our eyes wide open that we're going to end up with probably a legislative fight discussion.
Well, and I mean, one thing too, again, we've got these 2 vet schools coming that, again, we're talking about wanting veterinarians to stay in Arkansas. Just because we have 2 vet schools in Arkansas doesn't mean any of those kids are going to stay in Arkansas. Okay, we can educate them here, and then they diffuse all over the world. And so, for them to want to stay in a market, it's got to be a market that supports veterinarians. And so, again, in 4 years now, I guess for line, we're going to be graduating 250. There's 800 practicing veterinarians in Arkansas. Now we're going to be graduating 250 a year in Arkansas. So if these kids are looking at a market or a state or a administration that doesn't support a veterinarian to get $350,000 worth of debt to become a veterinarian, why would they want to incur that debt, incur the misery of vet school, and stay in a state that allows a teenage girl to do pretty much the same thing? So again, there is some long-term goals on trying to keep some of these kids in Arkansas to work.
The dichotomy that exists with these things happening without some sort is if a veterinarian was licensed in the state of Georgia and came in here without a license in the state of Arkansas and did some of these things.
Yes.
We could come after that veterinarian and say, you're practicing without a license.
In Arkansas, right, and we do. I mean, that is
But you
done.
could have a random person come in and do these things and we go, what? Okay,
Yeah, again, nobody,
That doesn't
no oversight,
seem
no
very-
education, no training.
that's not taking care of your veterinarians. It's also not, part of our mission is to safeguard the public and safeguard animals, and we're not living up to those things if we let lay people do some of these things.
Agreed.
I think we definitely need to pursue it, but I will tell you this, and I'm going to be pretty bold in this statement. The veterinarians in Arkansas, the last 2 sessions, have not come to the table in a very good way, and legislation has been passed. And we don't we don't need to be the judge and jury when the legislature is passing these laws that are saying you're able to do these things. I mean, I'm there every day, and I can tell you the last session, it didn't go well. And I think we definitely need to pursue it, but just know that if we as a commission try to set the rules, there will be pushback. And I'm all for this, but I'm
ABMA Legislative Committee, that's who we met with the other night. And I'm not on there, but they had asked me to attend. And that is one thing that we brought up. Because, last session, when the veterinary technician and technology bill and all that, and I'll say, my profession did not show up well. And when they did show up, they did not do a very good job of quorum there. And so that is one thing that the current ABMA president and the incoming ABMA president and I are working on right now, trying to get a better relationship and better lobbyist and better representation to put a little better foot forward on future legislation.
Where is ABMA?
ABMA is all for it.
ABMA is in Arkansas.
Or, yeah.
Okay.
Arkansas.
Would be in for us pursuing administrative action to stop that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's Lindy O'Neill and I can get a statement from them, but they're all for it now.
Dr. Plone, that's good news, I can tell you.
I was not proud of the representation and the way that the veterinarians handled the last legislative session. So we're gonna work on that.
We want to make a recommendation or what the on committee or what's the what do you think, Patrick?
Well, I would. I think at this point, we need, a motion to either act administratively and then go through the route of the committee and through the commission. If the administrative action doesn't uphold, if they don't yield to that, or criminally, or whatever the case may be, there's two options there. We could start with that process, or we could go with the route Dr. Niles is referring to, is kind of develop a relationship with those and see if they would get with a veterinarian to be under their direction. So I think at this point, we just got a couple motions that we just need to entertain. And that's what I've heard so far.
I would make a motion that the commission delineate what is practicing veterinary medicine without license. Again, I think there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of gray areas here that, again, the dentistry is fairly cut and dry. Again, between the ultrasound and the therapy modalities out there now, I think we need to come to a consensus on what is going to be legal or not. And then we would know who needs a cease and desist letter and who doesn't. I mean, are we talking about sending a cease and desist letter to everybody that does post pimps? Or where are we gonna draw that line, I guess?
Cause it's I'm going to extremes, but based on the discussion you're having, Patrick went and put ice on his neighbor's dog because it got bit by a snake or something. That's a treatment modality. And, I think that's a non-issue, but it's still in the same camp.
But if Patrick charges his neighbor to go do that, again, isn't that the delineation? You can go help your friend, you can do whatever you want to, but when you charge for it, isn't that taking over an occupation? mean, they want to do it for free, you know, then somebody sign a waiver, that's their deal. But again, whenever they take payment for doing a service to an animal, I would think that's a delineation. Anna, that,
So the problem is stated as a hypothetical, but the way that these have to run, we've got a definition of the practice of veterinary medicine. And each complaint or each case or each, anything that's brought up to either the committee or the commission would have to be, since this is a fact-based determination, you have to take a look at the evidence and then you can decide whether they cease and desist or go full-blown hearing or say, I think we got enough right here, Billy, go drive citation already. It would have to be fact-based to make that determination on a case-by-case basis. We've got the law right here. If we know what teeth loading is, we know what cut out wolf teeth are on that, and you can take a look at it and say, all right, that's dentistry, that's not dentistry. It's gonna have to be case by case by case.
I mean, even if they got a prescription for them. You know, so I mean, if they were working under a prescription for one of the, you know, again, you've got therapy, gold shine, red laser, shockwave, you know, all these therapy modalities out there that, again, anybody can buy. So, you know, if we wanted to set it just where if they wanted to work, because a lot of veterinarians, I agree, and what Tommy said, look, a lot of veterinarians don't like work. I mean, I'll tell you, you know, there's a lot of lazy vets out there. It is hard sometimes to find somebody to do this. I will yield to that 100%. But if they want to, again, work off of a prescription, I just think there has to be some chain of command for oversight that these people have some sort of oversight to them, that it falls to a veterinarian that prescribed that.
We do have a motion on the floor for the commission to delineate what is vet medicine, practicing vet medicine without a license. Here a second.
I'll second.
Second by Chad Chester.
Is that enough detail?
Yeah, I was about to say, is that detail
Did
enough?
you say that?
What I wrote down was the commission to delineate what is practicing vet medicine without a license.
What falls under that. And again, I've read the Practice Act several times. Again, some of these machines now, again, the technology, everything's changed in the last 10 years. There's all these machines, like I said, that anybody can buy now. You know, I guess we just need to really look at that and make sure that the Practice Act is delineated enough to encompass those. And again, I would just have to believe in my mind that is a therapy. And when you read the Practice Act, given, you know, doing therapy is under the Practice Act. So I don't know why it wouldn't be considered a therapy.
You're right. I think I agree with you, but the motion to further define a law or rule that further defines a law in a certain direction has been seen unfavorably by the courts of the state because the definers of certain statutes and how they're written, what they mean. Arkansas follows that kind of broad textualist tradition. It means what it means when it was written, you know, a lot Scalia, Thomas, all those folks there. That's generally how it goes. And the commissions aren't necessarily in the business of defining what it means. However, what I was saying a second ago, when you get a case before your eyes and you know what practice of dentistry is, it lines up with that paragraph that lists off several things and other things that are logically included in that, then you're saying in this case, this person has practiced veterinary dentistry without a license. That's why it needs to be fact-based, because commissions, you can promulgate further rules where the Practice Act does not speak. And certain things will require definitions on, but defining the statutes further, that's been struck down before, of course.
Well, you want on recommendation of council, do you want to rescind your motion or?
Well, I think that's probably what we need to do. On the recommendation of council, just rescind the motion to,
If it means defining it, then I would suggest yes.
okay. So, yeah, upon recommendation of council, then move to.
Are there certain items, certain practices that are of concern at this point? Now, we mentioned dentistry.
Dentistry, ultrasound.
Ultrasound.
You know, the most common things are the ultrasound, the embryo transfer in horses, or
Pulse.
and pulse. Well, yeah, and pulse I would lump, you know, again, shockwave, pulse pro or pulse beam, whatever, and other therapy modalities. Again, there are red lasers that you can numb a suspensory with if you leave it on there long enough. There are cold lasers. There are these cryo units out now that is a unit that is, you know, freezes an area and numbs it. And again, you know, you think about this on a racetrack is outlawed for a reason. You know, you can't do that through the racing commission because it's too damn dangerous. And so you do that on a barrel racing horse that nobody, the little mom and the little daddy don't know anything more than this is gonna make Jenny's horse run better. And so you freeze a deep flexor tendon tear or a suspensory ligament tear on a horse and numb that, which it numbs it for a period of hours. And then, you know, the human goes in there on this horse and this horse falls when this ruptures because you've numbed it. You know, again, the hope would be that a licensed veterinarian would see that, look, we can't do this, you know, within a week of riding. You know, there have to be a prescription if we're gonna let lay people do it, or there's gotta be some prescriptive form there to where these people that, again, these buy these machines and they go spend $40,000 on a machine. All they're worried about making the payment on that machine, I promise. They're at those barrel races and at these horse shows and all that, and they're trying to do as many as they possibly can. They do not care if that horse is numb going into this event. And it doesn't even strike their mind that it is a liability for the animal as well as the person on that horse. So I don't know, it just, I think there's a lot of this stuff that is open for people to purchase now and do and get a training. You can get a Pulse PMF training in an hour online, you know, and then you get a certificate in the mail that you're certified for Pulse PMF. All that means is you know how to turn the thing on and plug the cables in and how you adjust the power. It doesn't mean anything about why you're treating that and where you're treating, how long you're treating and what it does. And so there's a lot of very untrained people with these therapy modalities that are potentially putting the animal and the human rider at risk. So if we list things, and I think we need to list several actual machines.
And if I may, Chairman, the committee has already looked at all of these, and in consultation with council, we've determined that equine dentistry by a non-licensed person outside of floating teeth is practiced without license. That the therapies that were brought online, the pulse, electromagnetic field, any of the laser stuff is in the realm of rehabilitation therapy. And so it is therapy provided by a non-licensed individual. So we've already made that determination at the committee when we were discussing these, because the phone call comes in to our office and we bring that to the committee then and said, this person wants to know if they can do this. And the committee says no. And so now equine dentistry has percolated to the top. The committee said, no, it's practice without license, they need to stop. And so what's the next move? The cease and desist order for turning and recognizing that this is a viable entity out there and bringing them into quote, so-called the fold. It may fit into that. I know that they're not veterinary technician, technologist specialists, but it may wrap into that collaborative agreement. Make a collaborative agreement with a veterinarian and they will provide your drugs in a controlled fashion. Because if you're gonna kill a horse, you're gonna get somebody hurt, you're not going out and killing them. So somebody's gonna get hurt. And that's what we're trying to do out there. But these definitions of what is the practice of veterinary medicine, come through the committee, we talk to Tanner, he says, yes, that's in the practice act. And then I go find or some scholarly articles were found, and it calls this particular therapy under the care of a veterinary rehabilitator.
I guess the point, Chad, you seconded Dr. Palome's motion, so are you okay with him?
Yeah. Yes.
That require a vote, and then require a vote. All right. Do we wanna move on to?
Do we need action on that? Do we need something on the record? A little bit.
Motion on the table, yeah. Any kind of action. Yes,
Knows if it needs to be tabled. I think we're all in agreement. We want some sort of action. I think it's figuring out how to word it so that we give guidance.
I think at most right now, we need at least list the items that are concerned, that are a clear violation, that are clearly written in statute, that they are a violation, and just limit it to those few practices and go from there.
Agreed.
So do we need a working group to do that? Is that something to involve some of the folks from the Arkansas VMA? So it's not just
I
the
mean,
commission
does
and
veterinary
it's a joint.
examining board do that, or again, or
The
like I said,
committee can make that discussion if they want to involve partners like AVMA, that would be fine as well.
I just think if you get buy-in from them, then it's a joint effort and
Sure.
it's not commission saying this or something. It's, we've got a united front if we do it in that sort of manner.
And then we can vote on that during the next meeting.
So do we need to make a motion in this committee, in this commission to create a working group to make those suggestions, recommendations?
Suggestion? I believe the commission could charge the veterinary medical examining committee with further examination of this and offer you a proposal.
that would make sense, to have the veterinary examining committee make a list, and we can involve AVMA. I mean, we can get AVMA officers there and invite them if that's.
And I believe the committee would consult with other entities in the state.
I think that'd be a good idea.
So do we need a motion for that?
I think so.
Okay.
So we'd like to make a motion to, ask the veterinary examining board to delineate a list of treatments and therapies that are considered practice in veterinary medicine. And vote on it at the next.
Motion on the floor is to ask the veterinary licensing board to list treatments and therapies that, I guess, say that again. I guess I didn't read my writing.
Well, that would constitute practice in veterinary medicine.
Correct, constitute practicing veterinary medicine. We hear a second. Second by Sarah Brown. Any further discussion on the topic today? If not,
So,
all,
yeah, I think, a lot of stuff running through my mind right now in my side of the veterinary field, right? I get yours. I just want to make sure that when we have this discussion, that, that every facet of veterinary medicine or veterinary practice is considered. Whether it's corporate, whether it's private, whether it's supplier industry or allied industry. I think there's several things that we might unintentionally have an impact on. So I just want us to make sure that everybody is whole and this discussed in every segment of the profession.
Hey, Tyler, it's Marcus.
yes, sir.
Within the same realm of discussion, making sure that through this motion and through this action, we're doing is establishing a list. No action taken from the list just yet. Create the list, have the discussion, involve industry partners so that we have a broad consortium, a broad base to be talking about what we think these things are. And not with the intent of publishing this, because obviously legal is going to throw it out pretty quick. But at least get our list started so that we can start the discussion. That's my understanding.
Yes.
Yes.
And then the other thing on that list, you said treatment and
There.
therapy. What about diagnosis?
Sure,
Yes.
yeah.
Think it's clear enough for the vet board or vet committees.
Yes.
Do we have any further discussion? All right, let's go to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Here. How many ayes do we have? Had all three there. Okay. Any opposition? Yes, my motion passed. That's only, I've heard about a few people vote, so I wasn't sure. All right. I guess we'll move into reviewing our agency reports.
Well, we got one more.
You do?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
With the Farm Bureau luncheon starting at 11:30 and the premium show starting at 12:30. It's up to you guys. We're running a little late. We can either do, you've got your reports in front of you. We can do a Q&A right now until 11:30 and dismiss. And we do have one more update that might take up a few more minutes, and that's with the actual hearing that's going to take place in November. If you allow, Mr. Chairman, I
Sure.
introduce Mr. Tanner.
All right, we'll turn it over to Tanner Thomas.
So
Check it out.
did have 2 days scheduled for disciplinary hearings for 1 veterinarian. It would have been 6 hearings in a row. 3 on one day, 3 on another. However, as I've talked on the phone with several folks who conduct these logistically, day in, day out, a lot of these dockets got pregnant, so to speak, with a lot of information that would have taken a lot of time and a lot of discussion and a lot of witness statements. And at the end, y'all as a commission would have to deliberate on these issues here. So since Patrick here, y'all turn it over to have him schedule and do the most practical thing for the whole commission, try to get everybody together. We want to respect y'all's time, complainants' time, respondents' time, and to give y'all time to think through these issues. To make sure that all of the witness statements, all of the expert witness statements, all of the medical records were reviewed properly. We made the decision, and honest counsel did not object to this, to continue 4 of these until a later date. One of them will be switched to a 10 o'clock slot on the first date. So November 4th, there will be 2 hearings instead of 6 hearings at the total. There's an expert witness that is coming on an afternoon one. First one's going to be 10 a.m. and there's not a whole lot of witnesses there. That may be in and out, fairly cut and dry, just as a prediction from my perspective on that. And then an afternoon one can start at 1 p.m. expert witness testimony and a couple witnesses there. How these work, and I wanted to kind of go through this with y'all. It's not gonna be too different than what you might see in any other trial or hearing like that, except in y'all's case, y'all are the judge and the jury. You can think of that as kind of a prompt in the brain to think through this here. We're gonna have a hearing officer. We have a hearing scheduled beforehand as far as admissibility of evidence and whatnot with that hearing officer. He does kind of the practical things, hearing objections, admissible evidence, everything like that. Call to order, give you all the dockets there. Y'all will see the full docket in front of your faces once we interact. Depending on the hearing officer, you may have a chance to review it off the record, to take a look through, make sure you read it before you hear witnesses, opening, closing statements, if this officer allows, or if we even wanted them. Sometimes attorneys waive them, not a whole lot of law and order, a few good men type statements that go on in administrative hearings. But we might, and then deliberation periods on each case will follow each docket to make sure you're discussing the facts that we just heard. And we will have lunch, so. Try to be there. We're gonna need to form a quorum on these and make sure that we have most, if not all, commissioners there, please.
I will not be there.
You might,
So that's Monday, November 4th.
Monday, November 4th. It would have been fifth, but no longer, on that. The other four have been continued to a date yet to be determined. This is a busy part of the year in the end, and a lot of things going on, agency and y'all's side as well. I know it's holidays and we can talk about legislative session here, different things going on. We will discuss with respondents council on what days for both y'all and them. So on those four that we continue. So that's just an update real quick there.
All right, so everybody's pretty clear. We'll have a hearing on November the 4th. It'll be at the office. Okay.
And y'all will receive letters with the updated date and time on each.
Has everyone received a packet already, just to be clear? Chad, Marcus? Tom?
Yes.
That's one, I think Senator Malik still hadn't got his. I just want to double check, make sure everybody's got their information, so. If not, do we have any old business we need to bring forward? Any new business? All right, so our next commission meeting would be in January.
It's going to be, we have a date that's set, with the, Arkansas Fair Manager Association Conference in Hot Springs at the Convention Center on January 16th at 2 p.m. Okay.
I know that's a long time from now, so everybody, pencil that in. That's our annual one in Hot Springs. And I don't have, we're gonna bypass our reports due to, saving some time. And I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been made to adjourn.
Second.
Sloan, all there, please say aye. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Chad.
Sorry to take up so much time on that. No, couldn't do y'all's part.
Good meeting.
I don't think they're probably.